Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy. Also writing is Jennifer K. Lambert, author of epic fantasy romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee, which is delicious. Today is Wednesday, August 5th. Into August now. Uh, the birthday month has officially commenced for me. Um, so I've already started receiving happy birthdays from some people. My therapist. Hashtag I'm in therapy now. Yeah, so I've been ramping back up on Never the Roses 3, getting going on that. I have a few things I want to talk about today. One is a listener question. I love it when I get a listener question. I do have author friends who make up reader questions, uh, because they don't always get them. And so they like make them up or they consolidate them from standard frequently asked questions, which actually no shade on that. But and I happen to know because one of them had asked me if she could use something that I had asked her as her reader question, and I was like, yeah, go ahead, whatever. Anyway, this is an actual listener question that you could see in the comments, and it's interesting, and I really do appreciate that. I love it when you all send me questions and comments. Just saying, no onus, but it is really good to hear about. So this person commented saying, "I don't know if you have seen the Atlantic article on Daggermouth. I had not at that point, but I have now." Well, I knew about the controversy, but I had not read the article. I did go and read it for you. Okay, the Atlantic article on Daggermouth being possibly AI generated or at least partially AI assisted. Let's put those in quotation marks, AI. How do you feel about these kinds of speculations? Do you think that they are unfounded witch hunts or that, for want of any regulation, AI novels should be community examined and policed? And it's a good question. So, the article in question, I don't think I'm going to bother to link to it. It's pretty easy to find if you want to. Uh, is actually fairly bland considering the amount of social media discourse I saw and stuff, which is how I find out about anything these days. It's kind of interesting. It's like this, I don't know if it counts as backwards. It's an interesting social, I don't want a social media, social phenomenon that I hear people commenting on or riffing on a particular topic before I find the actual source. And I know other people are doing that too, where we're all like, okay, somebody clue us in. We need context. What are you all talking about? Because people assume context, which is, I think, part of the lure of the social media strategy to arouse curiosity. It's like overhearing a hot conversation at the table next to you in the restaurant. So I had seen a lot of the discourse on this article and people being very upset about it, saying things like witch hunt um, and there's a sense of that if someone is accused of using generative AI, that it is indefensible, that there's not any way to prove that you did not. So thus some of the comparisons to the old witch trials would, basically you could not win, right? You were put in the drowning chair, and if you drowned you were innocent. But if you didn't drown, then you were definitely a witch and got stoned to death or some such. So there's a sense of that being accused of using generative AI in your work is a stain from which you cannot escape once the accusation is flung. The Atlantic article itself was musing on the rising phenomena of this, where, okay, folks, we know that people are using generative AI to write books. There are people out there baldly admitting to it. Okay, we know that this is happening. There is like some sort of I can't even remember what it is now. I don't care to look it up. Uh, it was like a online university. I'm putting that in air quotes too, teaching you how to use generative AI to write your books. And they had a Google Doc survey on how authors were actually using generative AI. And let me tell you, I had a really good time filling this out and explaining how I would never, ever, ever use it and how loathsome I think it is and why. And of course they're trying to cash in. Everybody's trying to frickin' cash in. I keep thinking that this pendulum is going to swing back, and I don't know. Do we need the guillotines? Whatever, but it's just like increasing cash in for years and years and years, and I'm just waiting for this to burst. I don't know. Maybe it never will. Maybe my idealism coming to the fore. Anyway, Corrine does little cuts of this podcast for me, and when I bounce around topics, it makes it really difficult for her. Sorry, Corrine. All right. So regarding Daggermouth and generative AI, sticking specifically to that example, uh, Bramble UK and the rest of Tor and Macmillan have backed the author. And I think this is something that, regardless of anything else, and this is essentially your question, valued listener, is should there be these policings by the community? And to that, I say no, because people don't know what the frick they are talking about, right? There's like this whole thing going around that if you use M dashes, you must not. It must be generative AI because humans don't use M dashes, which is one of the most insane takes I have heard in my 60 years of existence. I'm going to say I was using an M dash when I was 3 years old. I probably wasn't that young, but I did see someone getting a rejection letter from a publisher saying that they rejected it because of that it must have been written with generative AI because of the presence of M dashes, and even chidingly said, "I know you don't have an M dash symbol on your keyboard." And, I'm sorry, for those of us who grew up programming in Dawson High School, it's I hate to shake my cane and be all get off my lawn, but I miss word perfect still, and we all know that if you do dash dash, it automatically converts to an M dash. And like most writers, I will say you can pry my M dashes out of my cold dead fingers. This idea that it's humans don't use it, and that there's not a key. It's like, have you never heard of a keyboard shortcut? Uh, Crazy, crazy. Little pro tip. I've shared this at other times, but if you are like me, a user of weird fantasy words, you can uh, take advantage of autocorrect on the spelling and have a shortcut of letters for your weird words, so that you don't have to remember exactly how you spelled it with all of the accents and everything. You can type in a chain of, like, for skahu, for example, you can type in a chain of like THC, and it, or something that's, I can't remember what I use now. It's like muscle memory, but something that you don't otherwise use, because it will just convert to that word. Anyway, keyboard shortcuts. How many of us have been using them for, since dinosaurs walked the earth, essentially? So, sorry, Corinne, I know I'm bouncing. Uh, I would say the short answer is trust the professionals, and not some random literary journal person who doesn't understand how keyboard shortcuts work. But when the Bramble UK team, and with Daggermouth, it's my same editor as for my Bramble UK books, Jillian Green, who I've never met but seems awesome. She sends me flowers. If if those people say that they back the author and they believe that generative AI was not used, then I trust the professionals. I mean, this is sort of like one of these things that's getting eroded in our society where we believe the voices of influencers over that of the experts and professionals. And, people, this is the whole point of people specializing in an expertise, especially in a society like ours where you cannot be expert in everything. You pay other people for their expertise, right? That's how it works. You go to your doctor because your doctor has studied these things and your doctor knows. Uh, your doctor knows more than the person who did their own research. That's also in air quotes, uh, on who knows what idiots blog, right? Just because people say things confidently, and in fact, if somebody says things very confidently, that's a cause for question, because experts and people who understand nuance will rarely put anything as black and white. They'll say, well, except for this, and let me caveat that, and it's possible this other. Whereas the influencer types will say, no, it's that, you know. Like an example in the wellness community is, like there's all these people saying you should drink raw milk and that raw milk's really good for you. And then they've discovered this great hack that if you're worried about getting sick from bacteria, from raw milk and parasites, as you should be, that the great hack is that you boil it first. So like they've reinvented pasteurization. The level of ignorance is just insane. Anyway, that's a side note. Conversely, so I'm saying that with Daggermouth, if the professionals say that they think that H.N. Wolfe did not use it, uh, I think that I believe them, right? Those are the people who are qualified to pass judgment on these things. There was the case of this other book where that got this ridiculous sum of 2.4 million for a debut book. This is what happens with oxygens with auctions. You get the blood in the water, and then it was later discovered that the book was completely written with generative AI. And of course, the author has gone on social media to cry, witch hunt, and so forth. But this was a case where the editors, once they dug in, they could tell. And again, they are professionals. They have read and edited so many books that they are going to know. And yeah, I'm going to trust the opinion of the professionals. And I know that there is a counter narrative to this, that there is a distrust of the gatekeepers. I'm using air quotes tons today. And that they are targeting people of color, marginalized groups, and that that they are more likely to be accused. And I think what's happening, and I cannot say this definitively, here I go caveating it. Um, can I? Yeah, I guess I can use that way. Uh, is no, I distracted myself. Um, is that we are hearing about the cases where it's a marginalized author more often because it's more interesting and it's more click worthy. It is happening to other authors as well and not getting the same kind of notoriety. But that's what it comes down to for me. If some Joe Reader says, I think this is AI because it has M dashes, no, I don't care, and I'm not going to pile on. If somebody says they fed it into the AI test, please don't do this. Do not feed the, how we always had the saying, do not feed the trolls. Okay, do not feed the AI machine. Just don't. Don't use it. Don't touch it. Don't go near it. Don't feed it. We want this to starve and die. Okay. I mean, I'm very hardline about this. And I know that there have been authors falsely accused of using generative AI. There have been authors accurately accused of using generative AI. Um, I have not been accused that I know of. At least nobody's accused me to my face. Um, and I don't know if it's because I am so vocal. I mean, I've seen authors out there. Here I'm frothing at the mouth. I have seen some of my author friends posting, you know, I don't use it. And with a lot of things, I really just resist like putting up some sort of statement to signal these things, although I will blab endlessly about it on my podcast. So maybe people know I don't use it and don't want to use it. Uh, I don't think that, I think that this is similar in some ways to accusations of sexual assault, that you have to take the accusation seriously, believe women, um, but that does not mean that you pass sentence. And I think this is something we've lost. We've lost this sense of due process with our incredibly corrupt government and with social media lynch mobs and so forth. But the thing is accusation is not conviction. So somebody gets accused of something, you can pay attention to it. Uh, and then if it's serious enough, because this is like how our court system works, right? You have to have an arraignment. The prosecution has to demonstrate that they have enough evidence to take this to trial, to, you know, that it's not just some sort of random harassment suit. And then you go through and you have a jury of your peers, and you have lawyers, and you have a judge, and you have people who are experts. You have both the people who are supposed to be of, like you know, a jury of your peers means people who are like you, who are from your walk of life, to weigh in along with the experts. Was a crime committed, right? And we are treating generative AI in books as a crime. And I say rightly so. I know there are people who would argue with me about that, but saying that you created a work that you actually did not create, but instead scraped from other people's work, which is what generative AI does, is unethical, and it's not something that we want to support. So this is a very long-winded answer to the whole Daggermouth thing. Um, the the experts support H.M. Wolfe, and so do I. Uh, there are, you know, one of the things about romance is that romance novels were hugely fed into the AI machine, including a lot of mine. And yeah, there are certain phrases that do turn up. Um, we all just let out the breath we didn't know we were holding, right? So, yeah, I had another thing I wanted to talk about, but now I've spent so much time talking about this, I'm out of time. But it can wait for next week. Um, I'm interested to know your thoughts. I do think that there's nothing wrong with saying. I think that there might be some generative AI here. There's certainly some clear cut cases, like when people leave the prompts in their books. Um, but remember, accusation is not conviction. And having the conversation, talking about it, is fine. Uh, Blowing it out of proportion is apparently what we do on social media, uh, where the discourse takes on so much more vehemence than, for instance, this article, which was, I thought, you know, people were tagging the author of that article and calling him out and uh, accusing him of stuff. And I thought it was actually fairly factually presented. It was like, here's what people are saying, and this is what people have done, which is actually what journalism is supposed to do. I know we're all forgetting that, but yeah. All right. On that note, I'm going to go write my book myself. I hope you all have a terrific week, and I will talk to you all next Wednesday. You all take care. Bye bye.